Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Stream Education's Instructional LEGO Robotics video series. My name is Jay and I'll be your host today as we talk about pegs. So, for today I have my handy dandy box of pegs. So, as an aside, you guys definitely want to check out this box that I have here. It's very useful. It's pretty much just a simple fishing tackle box. It's nice because the compartments are, you can select what size you want them depending on how many pieces you have or how long they are. And it's a really easy way to organize your pieces, have them handy, ready for you when you are. And yeah, I highly suggest though that you guys stay away from the really cheap fishing, tackle boxes simply because the hinges tend to break. And, the cheaper ones, they typically have really cheap dividers. And what that means is it comes out really easily. And, if you look at a setup like this, if this came out, you're mixing all these blue pegs with these tan ones, and then it just makes your life harder instead of easier. So, highly suggest you guys invest in one of these to organize your pieces, and try to get one of the nicer ones too if you can. So, back to pegs. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the color of the pegs themselves. So, typically, the only colors you're going to be really concerned about are the following. So you have black, gray, blue, and tan. And for the most part, you can pretty much qualify them like this. There's gray, black, and everything else. So each color means something different, and there is a meaning attached to it. So, a lot of people make the mistake of, using gray pegs when they should be using black pegs, or black pegs when what they want is a gray peg. And that's because each one of them has a different amount of friction when it rotates. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my beam box, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I go ahead and take this gray peg, and I stick it in this beam, and I take another beam, this beam will tend to rotate freely. See? Very little resistance. So the use of the gray peg is for when you want very little resistance to rotation, just like that. Now that's in contrast to the black peg, which, if this would stop rolling, if I stick this in here, butterfingers, and I stick this to this, this doesn't rotate quite as easily. In fact, if I keep it in this shape, it's more or less going to hold. And to be honest with you, the black peg's ability to kind of, hold pieces in place just because of how much resistance it has is a large part of the reason why people tend to use too little pegs, because they assume, oh, it just stays in shape. It'll be fine. No, it won't be fine. I promise. So that's black and gray. Those are the two main ones that you're going to be concerned about. The rest of them, they're pretty much the same. Blue and tan, they're, more or less, similar. The gray ones, the tan ones tend to spin more freely, but not as freely to my experience as the gray ones. The blue ones tend to be, some of the most resistive ones. So, definitely something to keep in mind. If you can, if you want to have a lot of rotation and very little friction, you probably want to use a gray piece, but in a pinch you can use a tan peg to make this rotation movement possible. Otherwise, try to stay away from the blue ones if you want things to rotate, because as you can tell, very little rotation happening there, a lot of resistance. So there's color. So onto the actual characteristics of the different pegs themselves. This is your typical black peg, relatively high resistance, puts things together, basic stuff. You use it to connect stuff, can't really go wrong with it. So that's that. Here's a low friction gray peg, good for spinning things around, like I said earlier. Now there are variations of these two, and here's one of them. This is a long peg, and the only difference between a black peg and regular black peg and a long peg is that the long peg has one side that's longer than the other. So if you notice on the black pegs, there's a place to put in, put the peg inside the beam, and then there's a collar to stop it from going any further, and then there's the other side, which again goes in another beam, and hence you get this, right? Now, this is a little bit different on the long pegs. The long pegs are different because there's one beam's worth of peg here, then there's a collar, and then another beam's worth of space, and another beam's worth of space. But there's no collar here, so what that means is that if I have two beams, just like that, I can go ahead and stick this through all the way. There we go. And, I've made a connection. And, in a pinch, what I can do is I can go ahead and just put two of these through. And it's an easy way to, connect beams to other beams without having to take things apart. If you're in a tight situation where you really can't take things apart to put in a regular black peg, you can use these. But in practice, if you only want to connect two beams together, you should really try to use just a regular black peg. You'll find that if you abuse the long pegs too much, it ends up biting you in the butt, because what happens is you start, running out of room, and they start sticking out at random places. It just becomes a headache. So, black pegs, really what they are used for is to connect lots of beams together. So, two there, and then another one here, and there we go, right? So I've now connected three beams to each other. So there's that. I mentioned that, there's a variation to the low friction gray pegs as well. Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. There you go, low friction gray pegs. And you can find that over here. So these are also low friction, as you can tell. And even if I connect this third one right here, still low friction. So these are all very, very wobbly, very wobbly. Otherwise, there are other colors of long peg, but those, just gray and black are the two normal peg colors. There's other long pegs. This is a blue one. Again, like other blue colored pegs, this is a relatively high resistance peg. Not too easy to spin. And you can pretty much substitute these for the black ones for, about 99.99% of the time. I don't think I have any here right now, but, oh, I lied. We have some tan ones too. And again, the tan ones are a little bit, more low resistance. In this case, almost as much as the grays. But again, if you need low resistance, you want the gray. So these are here just in case you need them. The final, or there's two more rather, kinds of pieces that I want to talk about are these, which are kind of like long pegs, because they have, these two spaces for beams without a collar, so I can again do this. But the primary difference is that instead of putting a beam on this last slot, I have a little axle holder. I believe it's called a handle. And, I can stick an axle through here. Don't make the mistake of using an axle as a structural piece. A lot of people tend to do that. And they cap beams off with one of these, and then they have the same thing on the other side, and they put an axle in between. No, that's not a good idea. Axles will bend. But generally, if you just need to do something, make a maneuver where you're just going to stick these two pieces through, and you're not going to worry about it, you're not going to attach anything else to it, this is the piece you want. Definitely helpful when you're attaching a motor to a L piece or another beam, simply because the motors have an area where it's separated just like that, and if you put a beam in between those two, you can't really stick a regular peg in there. So those are these pieces. There's other colors as well. Here's a red one. Got a black one over here as well. Got a blue one. So lots of colors for those. And the final piece is the half axle, half pegs. Those come in a few different flavors as well. Same rules for color. But the only difference is that these are half axle, half peg. Pretty simple, but very useful for when you are using pieces like this and you need to connect it just like this. So to maximize the distance between the two pegs, you'd want to put one here and one here. And for this one, you would want to use one of these half axle, half pegs, and for this one, you'd want to use a regular peg. So my videographer happened to tell me that I didn't cover all the pegs actually. So there are a couple more that I seem to have missed. The first is this. It's a regular peg on this side and a half peg on this side. So you could do some pretty interesting things, like I could stick it, in like that, and another one on the other side, and get something like that. Typically though, you use these for the half beams, which I don't have at the moment. No, I don't. So yeah, that's typically what these are for. Otherwise, if you're not familiar with them, you don't really need to worry about it too much. But yeah, I mean, these do exist. They're not used too often unless you're really using and abusing those half beam pieces. And also these are peg on this side, and this is a regular Lego stud. So like regular Lego studs, it'll fit in the holes just fine. I could get two of these and then stick one here, stick another one here, and then put like a minifigure on it. Yeah, this is there's not too many instances where you would use this other than to get it compatible with the rest of the Lego environment, really. So like bricks and the cool lighting pieces and whatever. So yeah, those are there. There are a couple more like these. These are half axle, half circle-y pieces. Again, they fit in the holes just like that. And this one has an axle on the end of it. And the point of these is you can have like a little bar that goes from this to this. The name of it, I can't remember it at the moment. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it at the moment. But what you can do is you can connect those bars, snap onto these round pieces, and then you can connect another one on the other side, and you have like a brace, more or less. But again, typically these aren't as commonly used. For the most part, you don't really need to use this in every instance where you'll be using this. You could, in theory, just use a regular beam with, a low friction gray peg. And yeah, hopefully this time I didn't actually miss anything. Hopefully. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. My name is Jay from Stream Education. I hope you liked my video, even with its little, mix whole last peg thing. Anyway, I hope you guys are finding these useful. Don't forget about the boxes. Definitely invest in some nice ones. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, the whole social media thing. We're on Facebook as well, so if you follow us, that would be fantastic. Alright, well, this has been Jay, and signing out for this week. Bye, everyone.